What's going on, guys? Welcome on into today's trade recap. We have a recap. I'm going to separate these two. Tesla trade first, which was a break-even trade. Technically, it's going to go in the books as a tiny loss. But I do want to clarify a couple of things because this might be somewhat confusing. So if you go into these recaps, if I go into the recaps, you're going to see that I have two trades now. I'm like, whoa, what's going on? So on any stock trades that I take, I now am trading technically two accounts. So I have a trade copier connected to one of the, or I'm trading the $10,000 account. That's what I just, because I'm used to the sizing of that account. And then I'm having a trade copier 2.5x my sizing on a $25,000 account from the same prop firm. So the $10,000 account is a funded account that I've passed, and then the $25,000 account is brand new. So this Tesla trade is a break even. I will have a recap on the other one next. So the numbers are going to be going up in terms of P&L that you're going to see in the recap because it's technically traded on two accounts, a 25 and a 10K. So trading on just call it a $35,000 account size is what it's really being traded on. So it's going to make the trade numbers, the total trades go up by kind of two. But if I trade on my other account, the other prop firm, which I don't trade any stocks on, that one is a $25,000 account. So it's a little more even in terms of the sizing. So this is one that I think, you're going to look at this one and you're going to go, what the fuck are you talking about? How do you fucking, this is where I think I'm getting a little bit too deep or too far into my head. So one thing to also note is that there are like 20-cent spreads on the prop firm. So while yes, technically speaking, we didn't even hit break even. This wick is what stopped me out break even on those two trades, on the trade really. So let me go through the idea here. So strong push on good volume. It was like it still is the strongest stock of the day for my large cap list. So we get the break and I go, okay, great. I'm going to put my stop loss underneath the breaking candle low, which is right here. Okay. Now, this didn't really work that well initially. However, we got a little push above, came back, but we did not break the breaking candle low. So I thought I was going to get stopped out right away. I was like, oh, it's going to be a loss. No, it didn't. It ends up going in our direction. And I go, oh, okay, here we go. We get to about 221.35, give or take. My target was 222. So we get that far, and I go, okay, as we got up into this area, once we got above 221, I go, okay, I'm going to move my stop loss to break even. And I just went for a walk to think about this, and I was like, this is actually a really good idea. Not even an idea. It's a concept to be thought about. And also, simply put, I think I've been sabotaging myself. And I have the past this has happened 5 times over the past month, this 4 days of September and then August. And what I mean by that is when I do this and we get a move very nicely in my direction, the challenge that I've had is, when do you determine moving a stop or do you not move a stop? So you go back and forth. Do you not move a stop? Do you move a stop? And so the thought that I'm having is, part of the problem, I wrote this down because I was like, I was just thinking as I was walking, I was like, oh shit, this is actually good. Part of the problem is when you start to think like that, you're making these little tweaks to your strategy and it's not the same. Whereas if you just trade the same exact way at the same thing, that's it, you don't have to think. And when you don't think, the mind can shut off, or you can just be focused and intentional with what you're doing right in front of you versus And so I think this is a very, it makes a lot of sense. Just coming off of a really frustrating month that I was like, I can't get anything to work. First 2 trades of this month, red. And I'm like, oh, fuck, here we go again. It seems like I'm starting the last month over again. And so we get one in our direction. We get one that's going in our direction. And then I go, okay, move the stop. Not immediately, but I go move the stop. And in this case, I've done this before. This is not a new thing. This is what I've been doing. But the placement of where I move my stop, I go to break even. The problem is that when I enter on the break. So I'm entering above the breakout point, which usually is resistance. And what you could see, and what I have now seen multiple times over the past couple of weeks, is we break the resistance, don't get a huge push, come back, retest that general area, and then roll back up. Or it could be the vice versa on the downside, right? Break it to the downside, push back up, retest the breakdown point, and then roll back down. But what I'm noticing here is if I simply was to put my stop loss when I move it to break even, if I simply was to put that not at my break even, not even at the exact breakout level, but just below that. Going back to last month specifically, I would have had like 3 or 4 more winners. Today would have been a winner as well. As we see, we literally just, half hour ago, would have hit the target. So there's an argument to be made for moving a stop. There's an argument, and I never move it down. I always move it up, meaning I would lose less. I would never move my stop to lose more, to risk more in a trade. Because when I come into a trade, I identify the risk, and that's the risk. Like, that is it. But there's an argument to be made for the set it and forget it approach, where it's like, just leave it alone. Who cares? Because if you just trade that way, for example, go back to last month. If you look at the past couple of months, there have been times, don't get me wrong, where I have done that, where we get a move in our direction, doesn't go to take profit, pretend this didn't happen over here to the right, doesn't go to take profit, and then it comes back against us, and it goes all the way down, and we'd lose the full amount. There are times where that happens, but there also have been a lot of times where we end up doing this, right? And so the set and forget ends up panning out. It evens out. Like, it literally evens out. I think it's honestly, I'm serious. I think it's actually irrelevant if you were to move the stop, play that game, or the set and forget. Because when you move the stop up, yes, you will lose less money. You'll have some break evens. You'll have less winners, but you'll have more break evens, and you'll have less losers. So you kind of exchange winners and losers for break even. Whereas if you play the set and forget, you'll have more winners and you'll have more losers, no break evens. But the winners and losers, again, will kind of cancel each other out. And if you have good risk management, there's actually probably a reason to believe that may be better. So it's kind of irrelevant, in my opinion, what the approach is. However, what I have been doing that I think has been throwing me off, not throwing me off, but I think I've been doing a disservice to myself, is going for that break-even stop. Because when I do that, like, basically with the strategy, like, what you're technically doing is you're moving your stop loss to a very logical retest point. Like, you see that happen all the time. Does it always happen? No, nothing is 100%. Who cares? It doesn't matter. But, like, how many times do things, where a stock, wherever breaks out, retests the breakout point, shows the prior resistance as support, and then, continues higher? It happens a lot. So I think that I was just technically being a little too tight and being a little too, like, exact with that stop, that it's kind of hurting me. In this case, it hurt me. And I think last month it hurt me at least 3 or 4 times from when I went back to take a peek. There's a couple of trades on IWM, I think, where I had the ultimate target got hit. However, I stopped break even twice, and then there was something else. So that's the thing. So this ends up being a break even trade when I look back at it, and I'm like, damn, So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna go inside of this trade, and I'm gonna put this on the 10K account. I'm just gonna draw this in, or I'm just gonna add this picture in so I can have it. It's good to do. I haven't done this, to be honest, very much, and I think that it's something that I want to be doing more of when I tag these trades. So that's what I'm going to be doing. The only thing that I got to be careful of here when I do this is I got to just make sure I tag both of these as 5-minute, which is a little bit of extra work, which is a little bit annoying because they are technically the same trade. I could just tag one, but then I'd be throwing off the data, I think, a little bit in terms of, like, missing numbers and stuff. So I got to tag both of these. That's the recap. That's the situation. However you want to look at it, in my head, it's really irrelevant. But what's relevant is the consistency in how you do it. Like, you can't. And I've been I've not been doing a good job of this. You can't 1 week think, oh, I'm going to set it and forget it. And then 1 week go, oh, I'm going to move my stop loss to my entry. And then I'm 1 week, I'm going to go, oh, stop loss right below the breakout point. Like you can't be playing that 3 different ways, because then your data is not going to be accurate, and then you're asking yourself to be the judge of when it's relevant or when it's a better time to do this versus that. So just trade one way. And to be honest, the more I think about it, the set and forget approach, I think, makes more sense. It just makes more sense. Like literally enter, boom, go for it, and leave it. And that's it. And whatever happens, happens. You sometimes you think too much, So I want to think less, and I honestly want to do less and think less. You know what I mean? As weird as that sounds. So that's the recap. Stay tuned for the next one. That's a swing trade recap that I have coming out next, on a stock that I think is kind of I get in my way, which it's good that I just get out of it. So thanks so much. I'll leave a link to TradeZella below, like always, where you can track everything. Peace.